I still remember the sound of my own face hitting my palm, the slap that changed everything. My name is Clara. I was 16, and that Christmas party should have been the happiest night of my life. Instead, it became the night I realized my own stepmother wanted me gone, physically, emotionally, completely. I grew up without my mother. She died when I was 14, leaving a hole no one could fill. My father remarried a woman named Linda 2 years later. At first, I thought maybe she could be kind. Maybe she could be someone to love me. I was wrong. Linda hated me the moment she saw me. She hated that I existed. Every word from her lips was coated in venom disguised as concern. She wanted control, perfection, and a family that looked flawless to everyone else, except for me, the problem child who reminded my father of the past he didn't want to see. That night, our house was alive with Christmas lights, music, and laughter. Guests filled every corner, their smiles wide and fake. I wore a simple blue dress my father bought for me. It was nothing special, just enough to make me feel normal. But to Linda, it was a crime against her perfect image. "Clara, the living room is a mess. Clean it," she snapped, her voice dripping sweetness that masked hatred. I was tired, exhausted. My feet hurt from running around all evening, preparing for a party I never wanted to host. I wanted just one moment to sit, one moment to breathe. I made the mistake of sitting. Linda saw me. Her eyes narrowed like daggers. She walked toward me, her high heels clicking against the polished floor, each step echoing like a countdown to disaster. "Why are you sitting?" she demanded. "I'm tired," I whispered. Her face twisted. "Do you talk back to me?" Before I could respond, her hand struck my cheek, hard, sharp, public, humiliating. Slap. The sound cut through the music, the laughter, the chatter. Everyone froze. My ears rang. My face burned. I looked for my father, my savior, my protector, but he was laughing with the guests, pretending nothing happened, pretending I didn't exist. I stood there, stunned, tears forming at the edge of my eyes. I couldn't speak. My voice refused to come out. Linda's grip on my arm was like iron. She dragged me toward the storage room under the stairs, a dark, dusty prison filled with old boxes, forgotten toys, and spider webs. The door closed behind me, and the lock clicked. I was trapped, alone, silenced. I banged on the door. "Let me out," I shouted. My voice shook with fear and anger. "Dad, help me!" Nothing. The laughter continued outside. Christmas went on without me. Sitting on the cold floor, hugging my knees, I let the tears come. Not loud, not for her to hear. I whispered the name I missed more than anything. "Mom." I thought of her warmth, her smile, the way she held me when the world felt too heavy. And then I realized no one would hold me now. No one would fight for me. But then something else stirred inside me, a spark I didn't know existed. It started small, like a flicker of fire, but it grew quickly into something fierce. I promised myself, right there on that cold floor, that I would never be powerless again. If my stepmother thought she could humiliate me, control me, silence me, she had no idea what I was capable of. Hours passed. I lost track of time. My body ached. My cheek throbbed. My heart burned, not just from fear, but from rage. I started thinking, really thinking, for the first time about my life, about the years of silent abuse, about all the moments Linda had taken from me. And then I realized something terrifying. She couldn't win. Not anymore. I didn't know how yet. I didn't know when, but I swore with every ounce of my being that the day would come when she would regret this night more than anything else in her life. I thought of my father, how he let it happen, how he turned a blind eye, how he pretended nothing was wrong. My anger for him was different, sharper. He wasn't just a bystander. He was a coward, a man who valued comfort over love. I pressed my hands against my face. My cheek was swollen, my lips stung, my chest heaved with rage. But amid the pain, clarity emerged. This was not the end of my story. This was the beginning. I didn't cry for myself anymore. I cried for justice. I cried for the truth I had been denied. And for the first time, I felt a strange kind of power. The power of knowing I would rise from this, that I would make them all see me. Minutes, or maybe hours later, Linda opened the door to shove a plate of untouched food at me. Her eyes were wild, her voice trembling slightly as she tried to mask the chaos of her own mind. "You'll eat it here," she said. I didn't move. I just stared at her. Something inside me hardened like steel. I swallowed my fear and let the rage grow. I knew I had to be smart, patient, unstoppable. I would bide my time. I would watch. I would wait. And then, when they least expected it, I would make them pay. Not with a slap, not with yelling, but in a way that would make them feel every ounce of the humiliation, fear, and pain I had felt that night. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in years, I felt calm, focused, dangerous. Christmas continued outside. Music, laughter, pretend happiness. And me, I sat in the darkness, planning, learning, waiting. That was the night I realized I would never be the scared, silenced girl again. That night, revenge became my only promise. The morning after that Christmas night, I woke up with a swollen cheek and a clear mind. Pain was still there, but fear was gone. Fear had kept me small for years. That night under the stairs killed it. I came out of the storage room when everyone was asleep. The house smelled like wine, fake pine, and leftover food. Wrapping paper was everywhere. It looked like happiness had exploded and left a mess behind. I walked to my room quietly, holding my face, my heart beating slow and steady. In the mirror, I barely recognized myself. My cheek was purple. My eyes looked older, tired, angry. I touched my face and whispered, "This will never happen again." I didn't sleep much. I lay there thinking about every insult, every look, every silent punishment Linda had given me over the years. This wasn't just about one slap. That slap was only the proof. Proof that she never saw me as family. Proof that my father would never protect me. At breakfast, Linda acted normal, too normal. "Good morning, Clara," she said, smiling in that fake way that made my skin crawl. "Did you sleep well?" I nodded. I didn't trust my voice yet. My father sat across from me, scrolling on his phone, not once looking at my face, not once asking why my cheek was bruised. That hurt more than anything else. I realized something important right then. If I wanted justice, I would have to take it myself. I became quiet after that. Not weak quiet, strategic quiet. I listened more. I watched more. I spoke less. Linda thought she had broken me. That made her careless. She liked control. She liked knowing everything. So I let her believe she still did. I helped more around the house. I followed rules. I smiled when guests came over. People started saying things like, "Clara has matured so much." And Linda loved hearing that. She loved taking credit for my silence. But silence was my weapon. I started noticing things, small things at first. Linda drank more than she admitted. She hid bottles in the laundry room. She yelled at my father behind closed doors, then cried loud enough for the neighbors to hear. She controlled every dollar in the house. My father worked, but she decided everything. And she was scared of one thing above all else, what people thought of her. So I focused on that. At school, I started staying late, using the computer lab. I learned things. I learned how to record audio clearly. I learned how to save files, hide files, protect files. I didn't do anything illegal, I just prepared. At home, I placed my phone where it could hear but not be seen. Linda didn't notice. She never thought I was smart enough to do something like that. She said horrible things when she thought no one was listening. I wish she would just disappear. She's just like her mother. I slapped her because she deserved it. Every word burned into me, but I didn't cry anymore. I saved them. One afternoon, she lost control again. She grabbed my arm and squeezed hard because I folded a towel wrong. "You're useless," she snapped. I looked her in the eye, calm, silent. Something about that scared her. She let go. From that day on, she started watching me more closely, but it was too late. I already knew who she really was, and now I had proof. My father noticed the tension, but he still said nothing. One night, I finally asked him, "Why didn't you stop her?" He sighed. "She gets emotional, you know how she is." That answer closed a door in my heart forever. I stopped seeing him as my protector. I saw him as part of the problem. Weeks passed. I grew stronger. My grades improved. Teachers praised me, friends trusted me. Linda noticed the attention I was getting, and jealousy crept into her eyes. She hated that. One evening, my aunt called. She was coming to visit. Linda panicked. She started cleaning like crazy, yelling orders, pretending everything was perfect. I stayed calm, helpful, invisible. That night, Linda drank too much. She forgot I was still awake. She forgot my phone was on the table. She ranted, she screamed, she confessed things she should never have said out loud. I hate that girl. She ruined my life. I locked her in that room to teach her a lesson. Every word was captured. I went to my room shaking, not from fear, but from the weight of what I was holding. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was truth. The next day, I backed everything up. I made copies. I kept them safe. I looked at myself in the mirror again. The bruise was gone, but something else had changed. I stood straighter. My eyes were sharp. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was patient. Linda still thought she had won. She still smiled at parties, still played the perfect wife, still believed I was trapped. She had no idea that the girl she locked under the stairs was gone. In her place stood someone she could never control again. Someone who remembered everything. Someone who would not forget. And someone who was ready. By the time the next Christmas rolled around, I was no longer the scared, silenced girl locked in a storage room. I had learned patience, and I had learned observation. Linda still ruled the house like a tyrant, but now I understood her weaknesses better than she knew herself. And most importantly, I had a plan. The plan wasn't about hitting her back. It wasn't about screaming or crying. It was about exposing her, making her pay in the only way that would truly hurt her, through humiliation, fear, and the collapse of the perfect image she clung to so desperately. I started small. I observed her habits, recorded her words, documented her lies. Every harsh remark she made toward me, every insult, every attempt to undermine me, I saved it. My father still pretended not to notice, and that made him an accessory to her cruelty. That was fine. I didn't need him. At school, I focused on myself. Grades improved, teachers praised me, and I became more social. People admired me. Linda noticed. Jealousy bubbled in her chest like a dark storm, and she began making mistakes. She would lose her temper in front of guests, forgetting the careful masks she wore for everyone else. She would brag about things she didn't understand, overcompensating for the control she feared losing. And then came the night I had been waiting for. It was a family dinner, a small gathering, only a few close relatives. Linda had spent hours getting ready, her hair perfect, makeup flawless. She pranced around the kitchen, instructing me where to place plates, how to arrange silverware, all the while sneering at every move. I smiled, obeyed, and let her believe I was still powerless. Halfway through the dinner, she began drinking, just a little to loosen herself. That loosened tongue became her undoing. She started complaining about me, about my father, about everyone. I stayed calm, polite, smiling, pretending to pour wine for the guests, but my phone sat quietly in my pocket, recording every word, every hissed insult, every slur. "You think she's smart, that girl? She's just trouble. I could lock her in the basement and she'd still find a way to ruin everything." I had heard that line before. I smiled internally. She didn't know it was the final proof I needed. After dinner, I went to my room and copied everything onto a hidden drive. The recordings were clear, undeniable. I felt a rush of satisfaction. For the first time, I held in my hands a weapon that couldn't be taken away. From that night onward, I started playing a careful game. I didn't confront her. I didn't react. I let her continue thinking she was untouchable. Every slip, every careless word I recorded, every public display of anger, every time she humiliated me in front of my father or guests, I documented. Linda, blinded by her own arrogance, never suspected me. She continued her reign over the house while I quietly built my case. The final phase required patience. Months passed. I learned her schedule, her friends, her weaknesses. She trusted some people I didn't. She would brag about me to them in private, assuming they'd side with her. I saved all those messages, screenshots, photos. Then, one day, it happened. Linda made a mistake she couldn't undo. She lost control at a small office party my father attended with her. I wasn't there physically, but my recordings captured everything: her rants, her lies, her screaming. I edited them carefully, making a compilation that told the story she had tried so hard to hide, the truth of who she was. I sent the files to everyone that mattered: friends, relatives, neighbors, anyone who'd seen her act perfect at parties, anyone who believed her. Within hours, her carefully constructed image shattered. People whispered, confronted her, and many avoided her completely. The same woman who had locked me under the stairs, who had slapped me in front of family, was now facing humiliation she couldn't control. The best part? My father, who had ignored me for years, finally saw. He called me into the living room, eyes wide, ashamed. "Clara," he started, but I didn't need words. I had done what he couldn't. I had taken back my power. Linda's reign of terror ended that day, not with violence, but with truth. Every cruel act, every insult, every lock, every humiliation, I had exposed her, and it hurt her more than anything I could have done with my hands. Sitting in my room that night, I felt a strange calm. Revenge was not about breaking someone physically. It was about taking back what they'd stolen from you: the respect, the power, the dignity. I looked in the mirror. The girl who had been scared, bruised, silenced was gone. In her place stood someone unshakable, someone who had survived pain and used it as fuel. I realized something that night. I didn't need my father. I didn't need anyone to fight for me. I had myself, my intelligence, and my patience. That was enough to win. That was enough to make even the cruelest people regret the day they ever tried to break me. I smiled. I was free. By the time the next holiday season arrived, everything had changed. I was no longer the timid, scared girl locked away under the stairs. I was Clara, the girl who had turned every ounce of pain, every humiliation, and every injustice into a weapon. And it was time for the final act. Linda was still living in the house, but she wasn't in control anymore. Friends no longer wanted to be around her. Family no longer whispered words of praise behind her back. The truth I had carefully collected over months had spread quietly, strategically. It was like a storm forming in silence, waiting for the perfect moment to break. The perfect moment came the day of the family's New Year party. Linda had invited some distant relatives, thinking it would be a night to reclaim her image. She dressed herself like royalty, hair perfectly curled, makeup flawless, smile painted on. She walked around barking orders to the caterers, adjusting decorations, and making sure her perfect evening stayed intact. I stayed in my room most of the day, quietly preparing. I had edited all the recordings, photos, and proof into a digital album, a compilation of the years of cruelty, lies, and manipulation. Every insult, every slap, every locked door, every public humiliation, it was all there, undeniable, undeniable truth. And tonight, everyone would see it. When the guests arrived, Linda was radiant in her delusion. I watched from a corner as she mingled, laughed, and took credit for my apparent good behavior and maturity. She thought she was untouchable. She didn't notice my calm smile. As the clock neared 8, I made my move. The music stopped, and I asked everyone to gather in the living room. Linda's smile faltered slightly. "What's happening?" she asked, unease creeping into her voice. I held up my tablet and pressed play. The recording started. Her voice, her words, her cruelty. The times she laughed at me in front of guests, the times she tried to ruin me silently. Every insult, every moment of control, every single thing she had done to make me small. It was all there, undeniable, undeniable truth. And tonight, everyone would see it. When the guests heard unbelievable, Linda's face went pale. Her carefully painted smile cracked. Her voice trembled. "No, this isn't true. She's lying. You don't understand." But no one listened. The proof was undeniable. Months of planning, months of patience, every detail meticulously recorded. It all spoke louder than her lies. My father's face turned red with shame. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Linda's hands trembled, her perfect posture collapsing. She turned to me, fury and fear mixing to something I had never seen before. You tricked me," she screamed. I stepped forward, my voice calm but strong, the opposite of the terrified girl she had known. "No, Linda, you revealed yourself. Every cruel word, every action, every terrible thing you did to me, you showed the world who you really are. I didn't trick you. You did this to yourself." Tears streamed down her face, but it wasn't sorrow. It was the terror of losing control, of finally being powerless. The house that had trembled under her orders for years now ignored her commands completely. You ruined my life," she cried. I smiled softly, almost sadly. "No, you ruined mine. I just chose to rise from it." The guests murmured. Some looked shocked, some looked sympathetic, some looked angry. But the balance had shifted. The tables had turned. Linda tried to shout, to threaten, to blame me, but it was over. Her empire of fear and control had crumbled, and I had built something stronger in its place. Myself, my voice, my power. I didn't gloat, I didn't shout. I just walked away, feeling a calm so profound it made my chest ache. I had survived. I had reclaimed everything they had tried to take from me. And as I stood there, looking at the woman who had made my childhood a nightmare, I realized something else. Revenge wasn't about hurting her in the way she hurt me. Revenge was about proving that no one could take my life, my spirit, my voice without paying a price, and she had paid it. That night, I slept without fear, without pain, without silence. The girl locked under the stairs was gone forever. In her place stood someone unbreakable, unafraid, and unstoppable. I had won, not with violence, but with truth, patience, and determination. And that victory was sweeter than I could have ever imagined. From that day forward, Linda was no longer my stepmother. She was a lesson, a reminder, a shadow of the past that could no longer touch me. I had taken back everything she tried to steal from me. I had taken back my life. And as I walked out into the sunlight the next morning, I knew one thing with certainty. No one could ever control me again. Not her, not him, not anyone. I was free. I was Clara, and this was my revenge. If you've ever been silenced, humiliated, or underestimated, let Clara's story remind you your strength is unstoppable. Share your thoughts below. Tell me, what would you have done in her place? Don't just watch. Comment, share, and stand with those who refuse to stay powerless.